very complicated job, but I love simple things so much. One move, one push. One touch. One love. One click. One XBet.
You look into your inventory and there's only... It's time to forget about this garbage. Here you will find everything to play with really cool skins. Open top cases. Upgrade dropped skins and turn your junk into a cool gun using the contract system. Every day, thousands of people upgrade their inventory with us. Hellcase.com. Look at yourself in a new way.
Watch the matches with BO3.GG, the official stats partner of CCT. Check out AI-powered predictions in live matches. Get access to live scoreboards packed with in-depth weapons and grenade statistics. Check out round maps in the match results. Extend your game vision with BO3.GG.
Well, what are you doing?
Exhibit.
What do you think? I'm a paperclip? It's Mr. X to the Z. You need to quit browsing like a lame and get Opera GX. Because with GX mods, you can pimp your motherfucking browser. All you gotta do is click here, select the mod, and boom! New look, new sounds, new everything. It's not easy being a legend. Oh, not again. Change the mod now. Download Opera GX.
The champion of champions.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the CCT podcast.
We've got a ton to talk about, man. There's just so much action.
It feels like it's never ending.
Hey guys, we have another interview for you today. Very special guest, Speedy.
First, the funny thing, they also call me Grandpa in my team because I'm so old.
What are your general thoughts on what might come for the next couple of months of CS2?
Welcome in, ladies and gents. Bit of a break. Hopefully you got some lunch in the system because we're back with more Counter-Strike. Of course, we just saw one of our teams exit this event, Legacy, after losing 2-0 to Sinners. Will no longer be partaking in Online Series 4. Vince, still got 3 more games today. One more with us. It's L4O versus TSM. And this one, I feel like a little bit similar to the last in terms of storylines, right? We have a clear favourite and an underdog. But you know, the match was full of surprises, and I think both of us here can share the same thought in the sense that TSM might just be filled with a surprise today.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an interesting game, really, because on paper, when you look at TSM in particular, they have some pretty heavy-hitting, you know, household names going back. Valder, of course, was one of those guys that was looking like he was going to run rampant in the Danish scene. Inters as well, coming from a very storied past. And so it's kind of surprising that TSM haven't quite delivered to the level we'd expect. They haven't been a team for super long. But when you look at the individuals, you think this is a team that could be capable of so much, and yet they haven't really got to that point yet.
Yes, obviously today TSM playing LFO, the ex-Heat boys, you know, if you want the reference from a little while back. Organizationless for just shy of 200 days, the highest ranked team without an organization on HLTV. These guys are a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, you just saw the bracket. We can obviously turn our attention to the teams that we've got at stake. As you saw, we're in lower bracket. It's the exact same story as the last. If you lose this, you are out. You know, it's these teams basically fighting for life in this tournament, right? TSM, LFO, obviously ITB 00 Nation, Attacks Guild, Eagles later. That'll be covered by Jay and Dweg. We've got this TSM LFO game. Starts in about 7 minutes, which gives us good time to talk about these teams. You mentioned, obviously, TSM having name value at least, and I feel like it's unfair to say LFO are on the same page as TSM because obviously we haven't had the experienced tier 1 players, but we have got players in the mix that have played at a very high level, that do understand the game, that have breathed Counter-Strike for close to a decade. It feels like these guys, they know Counter-Strike just as well as TSM, I feel like, in that sense, but haven't quite met the same heights and haven't been at the same level as maybe some of the individuals on the opposing side.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, then there is the roster that we're talking about right now. Obviously, you're looking at Maka in particular as the AWP IGL component of this team. Definitely a huge part of what makes LFO tick. But I think Hadji is probably the player I'm going to be looking at today. When you look at the stats, he's slightly above the rest of the pack. He has so much impact with those rifles. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Hadji is going to bring to the team. And he's one of those guys, as you just highlighted there perfectly, Retro, that has been around for quite some time, has rubbed shoulders with some of the best French players over the last sort of 10 years, as has Maka. So I'm quite curious to see how these guys are going to perform against maybe I would say that TSM probably have some bigger names individually speaking on their squad, but as you mentioned, the core of this lineup has been together actually now for quite some time.
Yes, I think they've got the second highest core length as a team, which is quite crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It's the third, 666 days. The core of this team has been together, which is a pretty crazy amount of time. Considering, that's coming close to 2 years worth of time spent with the same people. Which when you're playing full time, that is a plenty amount of Counter-Strike being played between them. Of course, we just saw the LFO side. Only fair that we flip things over to TSM, and it's a completely different narrative for them because this team has not been together for long. This team has not been able to sort of learn each other's groove. And I'm only one for speculation. I'm not saying it's true, but you can kind of feel like there's still teething issues we need to figure out. This hasn't been a team that's been together for long. We haven't got a map port ironed down. We haven't really figured out what's our mojo as a 5. And that needs to happen quite quickly because, I know we've still got a little bit of time left in 2023, but with how Valve have obviously restructured heading into next year, we have majors at the end of every 6 months, effectively, right? I think we have one in May and one in November. So not a lot of time for these guys to get on the page, start playing in these qualifiers, start playing in these big events, and really stepping up their game, which, to be honest, of 5 individuals, Vince, I don't think you can disagree, that definitely have shown potential that they deserve that, right? We're talking about Inters in Cloud9. We're talking about Valde in his time in OG. Jax, obviously, at Tier 1 for G2. Cypher with an unbelievable RMR, a major performance with Into the Breach. Obviously, Modo is probably the only outlier in that, in the unknown entity, but he's been playing some pretty lights-out CS with TSM, which is a change from everyone else, to be honest, because I think, we can be the first to say it's been quite disappointing to see the name compared to result.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair statement. And just doing the head-to-head as well, we're talking about the IGLs today, Maka IGLing, and also AWPing, it should be mentioned, kind of Fallen-esque and in his prime. And meanwhile, Falda is the IGL going across to TSM. Obviously, he's IGL'd in the past, although he wasn't necessarily... I wouldn't say he was super successful in his IGLing tenure in his past teams, but maybe this is the moment where he's going to start to find that roster and really work together. But I do agree with you. I think the teething issues are still there. I think maybe it's a bit too early to completely write off TSM as a 5-man squad. I think that would be very harsh.
Yeah.
Give them another few months and see how they do. But really, the narrative that we're going into this game with is you have a 4-core lineup that has been together for a super long time, as you mentioned there, nearly 2 years full worth, which is crazy at CS, especially when you're not at Tier 1. When you're going down to Tier 2, Tier 3, in the French scene, this is notorious for changing out players constantly. So that in itself is very impressive. But you also have the component as well, if I'm not mistaken here, Retro, Jax used to play with these guys. So he's got a little bit of a grudge match maybe between himself and his old team.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it bad blood because I don't know what terms obviously Jax is on with them, but Jax was obviously benched a little while ago from the Heat side when it was Heat, right? So yeah, look, it's going to be fun. Anyway, quickly to roll through the veto. Mirage, Anubis, the Perm bans. LFO picking Nuke. I feel like this is quite obvious. This is one of their more played maps in the pool. They do enjoy playing it. Obviously, TSM picking Overpass. Now, this is an interesting one because, when I was writing down my notes this morning, TSM didn't really have a choice, to be honest, in this veto. If you had to just look at the stats, the blank page you get given on HLTV, and you had to to pick a map for TSM, it's just the one that they've played nearly the same amount as LFO, and they've got a better win rate on. So the run good for them is a little bit better than LFO's on Nuke, but let's not mistake about it. Every other map active in the pool, other than LFO's perm ban, they're better at than TSM, right? So TSM's hands pretty tied from the word go. So Nuke, Overpass, Ancient as we roll off the veto there. Again, from top to bottom, Nuke, quite a strong map for LFO. We know they like playing it. Overpass, it's TSM's only pick. Ancient, Decider. That's the middle ground, and I actually had it down as Ancient because it's a strong suit for both, right? So I'm looking forward to see what TSM have. If they can get to Ancient, it's going to be fun, but it's a difficult task playing against LFO.
It is, especially on a map like Nuke that typically will lend itself more to the strategical sort of protocol teams. And considering how long these guys have been together for, you'd assume that they have those set plays, those smoke executes, etc., kind of on point, to be fair. Additionally, when I'm looking across as well to the previous teams that these guys have played on Nuke, LFO are playing significantly higher position. They're beating 9. They're getting close losses to Monty. They've beat Spirit. You know, when you go across to who TSM are playing, they've lost to Big. That's about it, really. Apart from that, they're beating some very lower tier teams. They're getting narrow wins as well. When they win, it's like 16-13s, it's 16-14s. This is against like Free SB and Aurora and ICLA. Like these are not teams that necessarily going to be jumping out at you as some of the best on the planet. So I think if you look at the stats, you look at sort of the narrative in that, Nuke definitely lends itself towards LFO. Overpass definitely could be a map for TSM. We could be going the distance, as you mentioned just before.
Yeah, I think for TSM's sake, you look at the overpass as well, right? Like the losses that they've suffered against maybe some of these more developed tier 2 teams. Eyeballers, Aurora, are also one of them. But some of the wins, right? They've beat OG, they've beaten Big. Like, to be honest, I feel like your Bigs and your OGs are as good as you get when it comes to being able to compete at a tier 2 level, right? Obviously, Big are playing in this tournament as well. LFO, one of the higher ranked teams in this event as well. Obviously, Aurora playing. You've got the Preezy boys as well, with kind of a similar story to TSM, I guess a little more local to the Danish scene rather than European, in the sense that you've got 5 players that band together that have got the experience, right? And the question is today is TSM, in experience, definitely outweighing LFOs individually, but as a team, LFO together for so long, we're now comparing, right? TSM, do we have the higher skill ceiling because we've you know, realistically, we've got the more notable players at the higher levels. LFO, we've been together for longer and we know how each other work. We can play off one another, and it's that balance that we're going to see today between TSM and LFO, in my opinion, that's going to make or break this game. Because let's not forget, 2 pretty big names and two names at least you'd expect to go far in an event. One of these guys isn't going to be playing tomorrow. One of these guys are going home after this game, and I think that's very important to highlight. This is a banger match, and it happens in the lower bracket so early on.
Indeed, it kind of echoes what we said in a previous game as well, right? With Legacy and Sinners, like some very, very good players. Unfortunately, the Brazilians are done, so Sinners move forward. The same is going to happen here. And I also do completely agree. I think the teamwork element definitely goes in favor of LFO. Individuals, you probably edge with TSM. But let's not overlook LFO's capabilities and firepower. Haji, definitely a very good player. Lucky has been around for quite some time, kind of that entry, aggressive role with the rifle. This is a guy that can put down the law if you give him a chance to. So I also don't think it's as day and night as, you know, like you have a team that has 5 incredible god tier individuals against 5 players that aren't very good, but they have very good protocols. Now, LFO have some legitimate firepower as well. So definitely tread lightly and don't assume anything if you're TSM here. But I think if TSM, for me, this is one of those first steps into the future. Like, what kind of team do you want to be? Do you actually want to be getting into that top 20 spot? Do you want to be getting into tier 1 bracket, tier 1.5, whatever you want to call it? These are the kind of tournaments that you have to win. These are the kind of tournaments that you have to go far in, at the very least in the early days, because this is a barometer. This is like a yardstick to see just how good this team can be. Yes, it's early days, but CS moves so fast, especially as you said, with a major system in place, with CS2 being here now. You may not get loads of chances. You may not have 5 or 6 months worth of opportunities before you start to get to that level. It may be cut short before then, with other rosters changing and other things happening in the future. So if you're TSM, like, in my opinion, you've got to start doing something in these kind of tournaments. It's no longer good enough to say, oh, we're pretty new. They've been together for like 2.5 months. It's not super long, but it's not like it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, definitely. It's not as fresh as maybe it gets painted, you know, online and in articles and stuff like that. I will build on one thing about this LFO side. And obviously, Vince, you mentioned like this LFO side do have great fundamentals. They do play good Counter-Strike. In the last 3 months, everyone's been on a positive rating, you know, at least a 1.0. And then even further than that, you dig into the fact, ever since they've become LFO, not a single player has a negative rating on this team in the average. And you've got to understand that this team has been together for quite some time, right? Like, you look at the history, I know it's like X-Heat and then LFO and whatever, but the 6 months that they've represented an Orgless team, not a single player is in a negative rating. And for me, it's like, well, actually, I think that proves that you've got 5 individuals that are very capable of shooting back. And the teamwork from these guys is really nicely done. Maka, as you say, it's Fallen-esque, where, like, you know, I've got the AWP, I'm going to call a strat that I can set myself up with, and I know how I want the pieces to run, not just for the team, but for myself. And I think that can pay into the hands of LFO. TSM, on the other hand, two different individuals. Modo is probably at his peak performance, I think, ever. Like, I don't think I've seen him play better Counter-Strike than right now. Valde's having a really good event so far, specifically CT sides. He's the 5th highest rated player, which for me, as an IGL, you know, I feel like we even mentioned it in the last series. You know, your IGL should be the players that take the step back and using more of their mind than their mouse to gather how they want to put the pieces up. Valde's having a good event. Cypher, he's been hit and miss recently. I will admit to that. I think he needs to definitely work on fitting into the shoe of TSM a bit more. Similar story for Inters and Jax, who, to be honest with you, I think we both know they can play better, and we want to see better from this team. But as you say, the clock's ticking effectively, you know, and there is still time for them to make improvements. But by now, we shouldn't be 103rd in the world. You know, by now we should be at least for name value. You know, we should be pushing top 60, top 50, top 40, and you know, really setting in the motion to prove that next year is going to be the TSM year.
Yeah, and they also play for a very, you know, huge tournament. Sorry, not a huge tournament, huge org, TSM, that's been around for quite some time. Obviously, it's had CS teams in the past. League of Legends, most notably, is where it came from originally. So this is also an org that has some serious reputation behind it, and you'd expect them to be doing good things. When you look at Valde in particular, like, this is a guy, he's 28 years old now. He's been at TSM now, ENTS before that, OG, North, Heroic. And for the longest time, people have been saying, like, this guy could be the real deal. This guy could honestly, back then it was Rifles in some of his previous teams, he was posting up big numbers. Then he shifted to people are thinking, right, this is the moment now that he's going to prevail. However, hold that moment for a moment, because I think we're about to start the first map. Let's get into it.
So it is Nuke, the pick of LFO, where we start things out. I'm a big believer in, obviously, we had this chat last series, CS2, a little more T-sided, you know, it feels like CTs, you don't really get, well, I mean, it's obvious, you get less time to play on the CT side, so Ts, it kind of pays into the favor a little bit more, but the financial side of it, at least, Nuke, still very much a CT-sided map, in my honest opinion, and TSM starting there, they need to set the tone. They need to be the team that proves, yeah, you know what, we can do it. This is going to be it for us. Information towards outside, but it's ramp they've got to be the most cautious for.
Having a duel to the death, but neither player has fought. I mean, not all rush straight downstairs from the side, piercing into the kill. And in doing so, gives his team the advantage. Inter's now caught between 3 players who will finally barrage him down with their Glock spray, leaving Cypher to stand tall, but he is instantly nullified. Looking like a great round for the French so far.
Yeah, bomb plant, Hadji in the vent, Jack's no chance. That is round 1. Not a clean sweep, but as close as you can get to it, right? Exercise, obviously, running in, just more than willing to give up his life, because power with numbers is how they played that round. Send it right towards the double door. Get in the grill of this TSM side. Glock's always going to be favored over the USPs when it's close range like that. This shot from Maka, disgusting, by the way. But this is it, right? They just pile in. Nobody can kill us if we're all together. There's always going to be a trade. There's always going to be a second man. And, yeah, that spells out quite nicely, this LFO first round. Nice discipline, nice fundamentals. This is classic LFO. We can already see it happening, you know, from the word go.
Drive-by on the AK as well, long-range headshot. Modo did have the scout, obviously the AWPer of TSM. Someone will definitely looking towards to post up some big numbers, but for the time being, it's all LFO's way. Full rifles, and so far full control. Valde and Jax both have their MP9s. He can make that just Valde now, as his French compatriot has been put down with authority. And it's looking like systematic control, as expected, but with this being a force buy, to get this done cleanly, isn't just timing just completely wrecked him. Spins back around, but he's being spammed up through the walls. With this being a force buy, assuming that TSM do concede this round, LFO off to a cracking start, and a low Inters, who was last spotted in heaven, now drops down onto the site, but just delaying the inevitable, it would feel. Not necessarily the heavy fragging component of this team, especially not in recent memory. And Lucky will put him down to make it a 2-0 lead as we're anticipating. And LFO with every opportunity to extend that to 3.
Yeah, so TSM's investment there doesn't really pay off all too well. Great shot from Maka to start things out. Cool work from the replay ops. We're not missing a beat here. And I will say one thing, and that is that there is, you know, strips of blue painted on the sea of the sea of yellow there, where it's LFO do concede a couple of weapons, sure, maybe not the most expensive, but TSM know they've done a little bit of damage, but the problem is they don't have the funding to back it up here, you know? This is the dilemma that I feel like we're facing in CS2 is do we think it's more valuable to eco in this second round and buy in the third, or do you think the force buy is still the play? TSM opting for the latter, and while it has done damage, ideally they were looking for a round, and LFO not going to give them the courtesy to take it. This one should be just as easy as the last, if not easier. Cypher, I think, spotted. Hadji spamming a little too far to the right. LFO, I think they understand the one thing that's going to win them this round is space. Between USPs and AKs, you're always going to want to keep your distance. No need to go running in to try and be the hero when it's simple. You just got to push a place, trade each other, bomb plant, and more or less the rest of the pieces just fit in.
Well, this round going kind of as expected and to plan on LFO. Hadji, one of those players that we did highlight before as being a real threat. 28 years of age as well. He's previously been at Team Falcons, Windigo, 3D Max, LDLC, going all the way back to 2015, 2016. A guy that's been around the block many a time. Plenty of experience on this LFO squad. And Maka lands the touchdown with the HE. 3-0 lead, but TSM will have a full-fledged buy here. Let's see if they can make it work.
Yeah, this will be nice to see exactly what TSM have to offer. We've got an AWP out on Motto. We've got M4s. We've got an AUG out on Inters. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Plenty of util for this CT side as well. I think that's the one benefit of buying in round 4 than 3 is that you get a little bit of a bump up with the loss bonus. So you can find yourself in a better position, especially on a map like Nuke as well, which is very util demanding. I think they'll be quite happy to see incendiaries and smokes rather than flashbangs and decoys. It's a pretty bog standard round to start off though, Vince. Nothing too spectacular going on. I think LFO now trying to use this as spare time to figure out what TSM do. You know, what is the natural, what is the default that we run here? I mean, you know kind of how to play Nuke in terms of positioning, but are they early mollying door? Are we going to try and take space towards outside? None of that really picked up upon, but LFO have a few audio cues, and now it's about the mid-round. What does Maka think the read is on this round?
Coming to a bit of a standstill with the utility blocking off the likes of Squeaky from Lucky's perspective. Most notably, of course, some of you may remember Lucky from G2. He played for a good 10 or 11 months, and then was on the bench for quite some time as well. So another player that has tons and tons of experience on this LFO squad. Meanwhile, though, the stalemate continues. It looks like LFO are ready to bring out the sledgehammer and start to knock down some of these walls, though.
Smoke's outside. Another benefit of it being CS2 is you only need 2 there and not 3. So a little bit of extra util pocketed by the T side, just by virtue. Cypher seems to have an idea that outside is definitely going to get pressured by the T side. Problem is, not a step has been made by LFO, so info has to be gathered elsewhere. Motto and Inters just in tandem, finding both Lucky and Hadji, so it's only this outside push remaining.
They've got downstairs, but there's only 10 seconds to play with, and even if the post plant goes in, you'd fancy the chances of TSM closing the noose and sending LFO packing, but that kill has just alleviated a bit of the pressure on its Valda. And it finds himself on the receiving end of the AK. Inters now leading the charge, pushing in with the AUG. Maka up close with his AK. Should be very capable of making short work, but misses his chance, flubs his lines, and gets punished as a result, but Jocko's still here. Exercise from the back will strike, but now he's last man standing. Has to flash out himself out, go in for that peek. The bomb's being defused. It's a full defusal. Full faith and confidence did Motto having his AWPing ability to watch Jax's back as he went for the defuse, and it has worked out for them. It's at quite high cost, though, 3 players, but they get their first round.
And that bomb plant really does bump up the LFO buy here as well. Don't feel like it'd be the same quality of AKs and utility. This is the kill that obviously we look back at, and especially the name that goes down. Maka on that position. You know, you'd bet he would rather than he wouldn't to be able to hit that shot, and just couldn't meet the mark. Unfortunately, a round that does not go the way of LFO, but every round you lose is a round you learn from, and this one played a little slow and a little more lobby heavy here by the looks of things. LFO disinterested towards outside. They throw the smoke. Cypher again throwing a bit of a curveball. Are we really going to go down early, or is this just a fake? Very, very slow. But of course, it's the T side that have to make this next move. Minute and 15 to do so. I find it really interesting how, like, lobby and how passive heavy this default is for LFO. Like, it is dead silent. It's TSM that are left basically guessing the whole round as to what LFO are up to. This time they throw the outside smokes. Nobody's home, right? Like, are we going to go A? Are we recommitting down again? Like, is this just the normal for us? I like it. It's good mind games, but A is the destination.
Oh, nice shot, though, from the Romanian. That's going to force them backwards just that little bit more. Jax will also pivot in, dealing the damage to his former teammates. 2 huge picks to start the round off with only 30 seconds left on the clock. Rushing in to Inters, who has to fall away. Motto's there to help his compadre out, and in doing so, has funneled the T's down onto the B site. They have got a bit of success with the 1 kill onto Inters. They're still yet to get the bomb plant down. Cypher next to fall. And another one onto Jax. It's suddenly down onto a 2-on-2, and they're going to decide to rotate back up on A.
Oh, this is sick. Great maneuver from LFO right now, because TSM just believed this was going to be a B play, just like the last. Instead, thrown another problem. This time has to be solved in the post plant. Neither player with utility now as well, so this is going to have to be another one of those where Motto watches the bare-faced stick.
They have no smoke, so Incendiary's nothing at all here to cordon off one of these angles and try and bottleneck them in. Great shot from Motto, though. Continuing to turn up the pace, and there is Valda. Motto with 3 kills in this round, being so vitally important, but nearly daylight robbery from LFO. From what, 2v5 was that? Into a 2-on-2 post plant? That's ridiculous.
Treading on very thin ice, this TSM side, because it's another round that, sure, they put in their back pocket, but take a lot of damage too. And this is quite mature of LFO. We've lost 2 rounds now, both of which gun buys. We're on our eco. Why don't we take 30 seconds? You know, why don't we take a bit of a breather, understand what's right and what's wrong, fill in the gaps in between. Where can we solve this impeding issue that TSM now are more than likely going to be the team that are on the front foot?
As you say, though, these guys have around the block. They don't mind just taking their sweet time. The Tech 9 seems like are going to be picked up. They have 3 smokes. 4 smokes make that. So they could go for the line of smoke, the wall of smokes outside, as you've already discussed a couple of times. And I do like that they are keeping TSM guessing here. Towards them, the luxury of trying to whittle away some side. But for the time being, they're outside of lobby once again. Now, my only concern here, Retro, is it's all well and good playing the mind games, but if TSM start to read this, and they just sit back and they just allow you to have to do all the work yourself, do LFO have the ability to turn up the heat and turn up the pace? In this round, they do with their Tech 9s, but it's only going to yield them the 1 kill so far. They need more than that. Running out to the open past the smoke, Jax will punish, and Inters comes in as well. Doesn't look good for Lucky's prospects in this round, as he's all alone. He does have control over the bomb, and he could vent dive off and try and plant down on B site, but he's electing to take a couple more players with him, which I certainly respect. I'm not sure if he's missed his window to get the bomb planted. He gets spotted, he gets fragged down, and TSM have tied this up at 3 apiece.
Must admit, the idea there from LFO, like these gimmicky plays that we see teams perform, that one was pretty cool. They basically blow open the door, throw a flash towards main. Cypher's obviously scared of what's happening outside because of all the noise that's being made, and so he gets blind because he's looking at the flash. and basically they all just run out right at this main player. It's a shame that backside isn't really accounted for as much. The likes of Inters was there. Valder, I think, even chipping in for another. TSM obviously tying the game. That was quite understanding. This is where we need to start putting plans into action, right? This is where we need to start putting pen to paper and really drafting out how LFO are going to find success at the halftime whistle. Because right now, 0 for 3 as of the pistol and the follow-ups from that. TSM definitely have looked like the better side on the rifles. Double nades towards outside, and Modo peeks behind it, only for the one. Good damage as Cypher drops Hadji. I think that was the bomb.
It was, but they have retrieved it from Maka. So they maintain possession, albeit a player down. It is Modo, though, who is one of the linchpins, talisman of this TSM squad. He's already had a ton of impact in these previous 6 rounds. So not a bad scalp to take. And they've gone from strength to strength. They boosted up Maka, decapitating Jax, and allows him to continue to press forward. Cypher had a sixth sense. Realized that Lucky could be on the long flank, on the long con, but still comes out second best. And LFO, not for the first time, are turning the numbers in their advantage. Have every chance to clutch this round now, but Inter's in a bit of a cheeky position, an off angle they may not anticipate, but he thinks better of that angle because it shows his back towards the window, and now he has no idea where these T's are.
Speaking of backs turned, Valde looking to be given a freebie. Lucky gunned down. But does he expect the secret play? Oh, he doesn't. Valde, now he's got to be careful. It should be a kill from the T side, but it isn't. 2v2. Reface from Maka, unsuccessful. Now Exercise left in the clutch. 1v2. I mean, at least he'll get a bomb plant, but it feels like a consolation to the round.
Molotov, so grim. Forces him out into the open. He couldn't stay around the site. If it just extended, he had such low HP, it could have just finished him off by itself. So an unenviable position, but TSM, after a very strong start, have finished the round off and taken the lead. More importantly, for the first time in this map, their money building nicely. Whereas LFO should be able to rummage together a buy, but it's been some very close and scrappy rounds, but they always seem to be coming out second best.
Yeah, I think that one a little more disappointing to see. Valde, I don't quite know what the communication was like for TSM. Obviously, we're not in the team speak to be able to listen in, but there was a boost assembled in secret. That's how Jax falls, and then it feels like in the mid-round, Valde's completely forgotten that there was a boost secret, and he just gets caught completely off guard by this retraction towards A. Fortunate enough to win the round off the back of it, but things really could have gotten ugly for this for the CT side. But it's the T's that have to bear witness a pretty terrible investment. I say that because there's 2 Galils and not as much utility as you'd like to see.
It's not ideal. But TSM, shown a couple of weeks. Rounds at LFO. A lot of success there. Modo turns his back to shield himself from the flash, and in doing so, safe passage is granted to LFO, and they will snatch on that opportunity. Rushing downstairs, Cypher with 1. Does take a lot of damage in return, but he stalled the push for the time being, and that is very, very important for TSM. They've now bolstered up that defense with 2 more players, and they're looking to try and take the fight to the T's. This could backfire them. There's more than 1 player here. And Maka, hiding around the corner now, has to stay in position. The bomb's been dropped down in an awkward spot. Spray is off, and he will be punished. LFO looking a little bit grim in these last couple of rounds.
Definitely not the LFO we know and love. Disappointing result. Hadji, I think, with 15 seconds left, realised, yeah, it maybe might just be worth not going for this round. Clocking in a 5th now for the TSM CT side. You got to think, right, first 3 rounds, I mean, the first one's a pistol, it's a coin flip, it's how you start half effectively. LFO look really good. They're able to barrel in a 2nd and a 3rd off the back of the force buy in the eco, and then right after that, it's just been TSM on the trot, 5 in a row now. And yeah, sure, Modo might just have the most kills. Valde now joining him. Jax is having an okay game. Cypher was 0-6. He's starting to turn that back around in Inters. You know, I think we even chatted about the struggles that he's been having as of recent, and it hasn't been All sunshine and rainbows for him, but this game, not a bad start. TSM, we know if they're a team that can fire on all cylinders, they can look scary. Is this going to be one of those moments? 9 rounds isn't enough to tell, but it certainly is going to point us to maybe a more correct answer.
Oh, definitely. Listen, LFO are no slouches. They're ranked 29 in the world right now. This would be a very good win for TSM. Going back to what we were talking about in the pre-game segment, about, like, it's important for TSM to start realizing that potential we know they're capable of. Cypher with 1, but that won't be good enough. They're coming out second best outside against the pistols of LFO. And that's a big kill for Valda. That opens up lobby control, and now we can look to try and pinch around the back. LFO will be very cognizant of that. It may force and pressure them into a mistake, into a crossfire that TSM have set up for themselves. But with a minute left on the clock, this is anyone's round.
50 seconds left, and as you say, there is a glimpse of hope for this LFO side. Problem is time constraints. Valda getting naded. Maka, oh, he's so zoned in on the angle, but changes at the wrong time. Valda spared a second chance in life. Smoke goes up. Maka can't afford to fire through it. With 35 seconds left, LFO still got to make a choice. Do we still hit towards A, despite knowing TSM are actively making moves, or do we dive into the unknown towards B?
So often went for these B plays. LFO this time, though, have their eyes trained on A. From heaven, they'll be looking to pivot in. 10 seconds to go. Bomb needs to get planted down. Is now. As Valda makes a move up into the heavens himself. And he's done so quietly. The T's have no idea about this, but Jocko is watching the angle. It still comes out second best. Valda, on low HP, still makes it work for him. Maka goes in, the opposite IGL, doing work additionally, both fragging. And now Valda decides that the time is now to push, and push he shall. Throws out the Tech-9 as a fake flash, draws away fire from Hadji, and his teammate will seal the deal. More than enough time for the defuse. TSM moves 6-3 in the lead.
Yeah, this is surprising. LFO, I mean, good start, right? Couple of deagle shots, good connections. Maka a nice one early, Jocko as well chiming in, but look, 3v3, even the 2v2, I've got to point out one glaring error. Maka playing this position, while it isn't bad to find the kill, the problem is there's only one man on site, and as soon as Maka goes down, Hadji has all of these angles to watch and no support whatsoever. Just never going to work in his favor. 6-3, TSM bounce back from basically in the gutter to one of the most promising TSMs I think I've personally watched. Valda got to be careful for the mollies, but a slight gap will spare his life. Cypher as well. I'm not sure if this has gone noticed by the T side, but he slipped into secret very, very early.
That's like a long con type of play as well, where he can just sit in there. And as LFO have had so much impact outside, I mean, whether it's been secret or they split up to go into heaven and hell, this has been a spot the Molotov will not extend. And this could bait the T's into such a false sense of security. If they try and go into secret here, they could end up getting destroyed as a result. Now they've molled the secret stairs. They probably think this position is completely vacant. I'll be so curious to see if that's a determining factor here, Retro, if they do decide to go ahead and just go for the secret play.
I can't believe Cypher didn't burn in that molly exercise. He's been throwing the outside smokes. You've got to pay attention to the fact that this is a lobby play. Valda's just spammed him down through it, but now pays attention to A. That's where things are kicking off. Valda with a second, and LFO stunted on this site push. Molly will force his hand, and he will have to swing, but that's exactly where Cypher's able to come in and help out. Secret player, maybe not the impact in terms of finding a multi-kill and winning the round, but here in support, and TSM together will take 7.
Oh my goodness, TSM are looking like the team that we knew they could be. And Valda showing why many people still think this guy could be one of the highest fragging IGLs in the game. Keep in mind, back in the day, this guy, he's 28 now. When he was in his early 20s to mid 20s, he was fragging hard on a lot of very high tier teams. And he's showing us why here as well. Massive impact across the board from Valda. This is starting to look a little bit scary for LFO. And keep in mind, with Overpass next as well, I would say at this kind of form, TSM would be favourites to take Overpass. They're eyeing up a potential 2-0 as it stands.
10 rounds in, it definitely does give us that impression. It's not even a short-lasting one. Modo having a look outside, seeing what his AWP can pick up. Need to try and break out the smokes, but it's Valde up close that gets compromised. Smoke towards door. That's obvious that it's come from backside. Exercise, got to be careful. Why is Modo playing knife out? He's been caught completely off guard. A solo push outside. 2 kills, finally removed from Inters. But that's sold the complete play. They've bombed it towards ramp. No questions asked. We send it. We go towards B. And we'll get a plant out of this one.
Downstairs now is Inters. One plan has now been finalized. Yes, know exactly what is up for debate. And with 4 very healthy players standing up against them, it's hard to see how they're going to get that impact coming back into this round. It's going to have to happen now if it will. And I think TSM have already got half a mind to save. They realize this is an untenable ask. And they want to hold on to these weapons. The 2 AKs are worth their weight in gold. I like this call. I think it's the correct decision. It does mean they'll concede the round, but they still have a 7-4 lead and potentially able to choke away some of these lives as well from the T's as they try and escape from the bomb blast, and they won't. No survivors for LFO, and maintaining 2 AKs is a very nice outcome for TSM.
Yeah, look, it's a loss on the scoreboard, but a win in their books because they know LFO just do not have the money to keep these antics up. And while they might be able to rebuy AKs, we know how important Nuke is for utility. They have just suffered a massive, massive blow financially. I mean, look at that. Not even. They do suffer in utility, and they have 4 Galils and 1 AKs. It's better for TSM than it is for LFO right now. And if they can make it 8-4, I can only say it's an appropriate result considering LFO setting themselves up for success from the word go. And from there, TSM have just barreled their way back into this game.
And that teamwork we were talking about, we've had some cool executes and protocols from LFO, but we haven't really had that cohesive, united effort. Jocko has been by far and away the heaviest hitting player, performing the best on LFO. We'll have to see if on the CT side they can get a little bit more comfortable. If this does end 7-5, though, all things considered, I think you take that if you're LFO. You'd be pretty happy with 5 rounds in the T half going into that CT side. Because I do agree with you, even if some maps have gone a little bit more T-sided as a result of the MR12 change, I think Nuke is still certainly CT favored. They're keeping them at bay right now, stuck in trophy room from Molotovs and looking to push through on the squeaky side. Jocko is there and wait, though. Sends a couple of warning shots across, and they will heed that warning as Jax pulls the plug.
Cypher, the bait. Can he find anything? Yes, he can. 2 quick headshots. That AK now cursing this LFO side. Down to 3. Smoke blocks off vision. And LFO deterred from the idea of pushing ramp. Jax, a little too aggressive for my liking, especially with the man up. But he makes sure that that stays the same. And it's all a sell play for Valde. Noise on the ladder heard. Exercise will find 1. But he is originally against 4. And having lost 2/3 of his HP, there's only one way this should end. And TSM only 10 seconds away from finding themselves an 8. Cypher doesn't even give them the time of day to do so. TSM, Vince, 8 rounds on the board on the CT sides from 0-3 to 8-4. That is a problem, a solution, and everything else in between. TSM gifted a lifeline here on Nuke.
And they took it with both hands, man. Like, it's one thing to have opportunities and see little gaps that you can maybe exploit and expunge a few rounds or here and there, but TSM were ruthless in their endeavors. As you say, they go down 0-3, they lose the pistol, they lose the subsequent full sort of force round. Since then, it has been one-way traffic with them in the driver's position, just cruising down the highway. And I was up to LFO to put a few roadblocks in the way, you know? They've got to win this pistol. They've got to try and bring TSM back down to earth and rebuild their way back into this. But I'm a little bit worried that those players like Haji, he'd just been completely absent. 2-8. This is a guy expected to come into this game and take it by the scruff of the neck, and he has not shown up so far.
Peeks are in. Lucky opening kill into trades, but out from Mustang. There is a second frag. Lucky still alive. The damage still being done. And Valde in all of this sees all this commotion towards A. I'm not interested anymore. I want to chop and change my direction. 1v2, he's going to have to win. Hadji towards the single door. Step made. Bomb planted. This round on for Valda. Can he hit the shots? We know he's delivered in the past.
Did they spot his feet as he jumped up? I'm not sure they did, you know. This is such a strong position. As long as he holds fire, they have no idea as to his position. Now they've seen him. He was waiting for the second player to show his hand to snatch the life away. He had the opportunity, maybe a bit too patient in the end. But LFO have got the job done. We said they needed the pistol. They've picked it up. They've now got both pistols, but they've got to make sure they don't make any mistakes, because that post plant affords TSM the choice, the option of a force buy if they want it. And they're going to just jump straight in with Galils.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're buying on the CT side after only finding a couple of kills, you are definitely buying here. 4 Galils make it 5. Utility is going to be a bit of an issue, but TSM more than happy to give that up for the sake of firepower. LFO now need to consider, okay, we've won both pistols. We're still 3 rounds behind. You know, let's not think about the map right now. Let's not think about the series and what's at stake. This has to be done just on a per round basis. Win this one, move on to the next. Cannot afford to trip up, especially in a round like this that could give TSM the window of opportunity to close out the LFO pick.
And with Overpass looming on the horizon, that will certainly be a pick that LFO do not want to concede. Jocko's going to be called upon. He's had a pretty good game so far, but loses his life almost instantly. Jax with the assist, Demoto with the kill, and now they're going to try and sweep their way down into the ramp side. Already a knee-jerk reaction from a couple of CTs. They look to pivot in downstairs. FAMAS spray is good, but yields 1 kill and a second as well. Exercise has gone above and beyond what he's called upon to do, and that's really disrupted this T-push, allowing Hadji to come through on the smoke and deliver a kill. But he may not realize they've traded positions. Jax has snuck his way through on the smoke, through on the decon side. He gets spotted in the side, but he's still alive, still kicking, but now his life has been deemed forfeit. And considering that he was carrying the bomb and wanted to try and rendezvous with Valda up on the A site, that has completely shattered this round for TSM.
Yeah, Valda found space towards A, screaming at his team, guys, if we can rotate, you come up the ladder, like, this is ours, this is our round. But the bomb gets dropped in the pits of the vent system. Valda has to drop down, pick it, and slide right back up in time. Just, yeah, fair enough. Look, 1v3, you're going to have to do something funky. He just decides to take the fight. Doesn't work. LFO will find a 6th, and TSM forced into a position of eco. Very, very well picked up upon. TSM now kind of have to simmer back down, right? The heat that they brought at the end of the first half, I think they 100% would have wanted to translate into that second. It just hasn't worked the same. LFO winning the pistol, winning the force. Now TSM onto the eco. Very similar to how this game started, but LFO on that more favoured side. I'm wondering if that's going to be the different mix that helps them when they need it most.
They've already lost 2, make that 3. Maka just tapping and tapping and tapping and stacking up those kills. And if he was to fall down, he would happily upgrade that weapon into an AWP come the next round anyway. Shooting fish in a barrel, it would seem. And just the one casualty is Hadji does fall down. M4 is picked up, and as I mentioned before, he's going to want to have that AWP anyway, Maka. So he's happy with this outcome. 8-7, as close as can be. TSM, after an eco, will have a buy coming up here. Very curious though, Retro, what kind of look we're going to have from TSM. Is it going to be all guns blazing or something a lot slower paced?
I don't know, because I feel like TSM have tried to rush for control very early doors. Like, they've tried to stick their nose into LFO's business very, very quickly. And then in the mid-round, we've kind of, like, slowed up and choked up, basically. And then LFO have picked them apart. You know, I think back to the pistol, for example, where it was just a full send, right? We committed completely, kills back and forth, but then when the dust settled, it's like a Valda 1v2. In the force buy just gone, again, we flung ourselves in towards B. Like, we were so confident in taking the site. Valda found some space towards A. We kind of wanted to change our plan. We slowed down, tried to get through the vents and up towards A, and then we all got picked apart, and it was a Valda 1v3. And it's like, well, you know, the early round ideas have been good because it has resulted in kills, but the problem is we keep getting outweighed when we try and make a decision on where we're going to end up, right? So I'm wondering if TSM want to take things slow, wait for these picks, because they have been pretty good at finding some kills, and then make that decision afterwards. That would be my view on it, at least. I'm wondering if TSM are going to echo the same. 4 players towards outside would suggest something a little quicker than usual.
Yeah, looks like they're going to answer those questions for you. Some ruthless aggression to kick things off. They've allowed Mono to position himself on red container with the AWP, but he is yet to fire off a shot. Hasn't been required. Cypher and Jax are doing all the heavy lifting and putting LFO back onto the back foot with that MP9 in Jocko's hands. An AWP and an M4. They do at least have Heaven control. Doesn't want to trade to that M4, even though it's tantalizingly close, because that would give his position away. And he must realize that he has enemies all around him. MP9 spray goes in. Now he can trade up, but he has no idea. It's that second player that's about to rip him round the corner. And that will be the Dane himself of Valda. LFO in serious trouble here with 50 seconds left.
Yeah, the problem is they have actually lost a fair few lives in the previous round. So this one is super damaging to their economy. Whittled down to just Hadji now as well, who might even consider a save in all honesty. You know, if we're going to be buying in the next round, our loss bonus is just about going to carry us through to an investment. I might as well keep my M4, try and save those extra dollars for a rainy day. Hence why he's off towards ramp, and he is off to save. Brilliant performance from TSM, and this is what about it, right? The switch up. Lose the pistol, lose the force buy, lose the eco. And it is the exact same as how Nuke started. They win round number 4, and to be honest, they've served up an opportunity like no other on a silver platter. LFO now needs to consider long and hard about how they're going to treat the rest of the CT side, because they can't afford to fall into the same habits of old when they were on the T side themselves.
Actually, will be able to save his M4. So LFO alongside that can buy back up again, but it will be bereft of any AWPs. So Maka will not have the sniper rifle to his name. I don't think he's the type of player that dips down to the scout either. He's typically going to be a rifler if not. We saw Moto using the scout on that second round. When the roles were reversed, there is an organ play for exercise. But TSM are getting tantalizingly close to that finish line, and LFO's money is on the tipping scales here. TSM must know how close this is. So much grenade outside. Mollies and HEs nullifying Moto and wrecking Jax as well.
Now the big head to take, to be honest with you. Not ideal to see Moto go down. Up to the remaining 4 to pick up the pieces and solve the puzzle of number 17 as TSM, as you say, edge ever closer to an opportunity of pinching away this LFO pick. This was the round to win. This would be a devastating blow to this LFO CT side. But they have set themselves up for success from the word go. So much damage done. And now TSM, no choice but to pump the brakes. This is their time to reset. Come back. Think about what's going on. Inters, have you got any information towards lobby? Well, no, but I have sort of crept midway into hut. So I guess A is probably the most notable solution to our problems. I'm wondering if TSM are going to make the late dive. Double molly, double HE. You know, we've got the util other than smokes. Let's see what they've got. Full A exec, but it's a ramp push.
It's a bait. It's all a ruse. They did just catch Jocko hopping down onto the ramp. He throws the parting gift of a flashbang. They don't seem too interested in this, and they know that a lot of that utility that LFO had on their collective belts was utilized outside. They've gone in for the heaven push here. This really could catch off guard. LFO, they have Cypher as well on vent, so he can try and help them onto that main play. But Hadji, eagle-eyed, looking up into heaven. He may get one, unlikely to get more than one, but does land a headshot. And this is where they can try and clean up the rest, but that AUG does nothing from exercise. They won't be denying the bomb plant. And Inters takes the head of Lucky. Cypher hasn't even had to show his hand yet.
Yeah, this is a complete bait of a round. Valde might die in hut. He might get the timing, and he does. Jocko turns, worst possible second. And now Maka left to bury his head in his hands. What the hell just happened to the French side? Even I'm stunned to speak. Imagine what LFO are like. A push towards heaven. Valde drops down into sight. Inter's tagged up, but he still wins the engagement on the closed vent player. And then a worldie of a shot, by the way, from heaven in towards main. And that's it. The French side can do nothing about it. Bomb plant, clock wound down. Good night, LFO. 10 on the board for TSM. a great start for the French side. Do not get me wrong. Util outside, you even mentioned it, been so much just damage, just a catastrophic amount, and it still doesn't result in a round win. Another very, very sour feeling for LFO. And the problem is they're now forced to take in eco. Tension turn 11, and that's it. You've got one bye between yourself and losing Nuke.
I've got to give Cypher a lot of props, by the way. So many times he's landed this perfect timing lurk or push and isn't required because his teammates just kill everyone anyway. It's another one of those situations where he's on 11 frags, but it feels like he's on the cusp of having so many more. And that's one of the reasons why he was touted as the next big thing from the UK. Meanwhile, though, a very rough buy, or lack thereof, from LFO is being punished. As the bomb plant already comes in, the one M4 they had has at least picked up a kill and allows them to pick up a second rifle. Whether they go for this retake, though, is yet to be seen. It is a rough ask. Like, they don't have really much in terms of utility. They have no kits. Maybe just want to hold on to these two rifles instead and play the longer game.
I think that's the more sensible decision, isn't it? I'm wondering if Maka saves this M4. Is this a viable decision where, like, can we buy an AWP with this? Like, he can drop over a gun to exercise and then buy the big green on top. Like, I'm hoping that's going to be the case. He needs to stay alive, though. Those extra kills, I mean, look, it'll grant him the AWP, but the problem is someone's going to have to make up for it. You know, exercise can get an M4 for himself, but utility's the big compromise that LFO are going to have to make. It's been the story of their game, quite honestly, with everything to do. TSM, 2 rounds to spare. LFO need a lifetime performance here on Nuke. You know, just to close it out in regulation, they need every round from here on out. Can only afford to make one mistake if they're happy settling for OT. And I don't think they'd be happy with that. This is it. This is the all-in or fold hand, Vince, that LFO have been dealt. The question is, what do they do with it?
And that is the million-dollar question that will be reverberating and echoing in their skulls as it stands right now. Maka trying to come up with the winning formulation. At the time being, damage being inflicted, and a ton of it to TSM. And now they're being cordoned off, they're being split apart and finished off by these CTs. Big HG dunking onto Motto, leaving Inters, who was on the long flank round on ramp side. Has not been spotted, but does not have control over the bomb, and the CTs know exactly where it is. So at least it seems like they're going to take the first box to a potential clutch, but keep in mind that any further casualties here would play hell with their funds. Their economy is still absolutely ripped to shreds. So if Inters can get another kill, which he has, that means that a couple grenades may be missing in the next round if they can win this round. And there is still enough time here, Retro, for Inters to pull off the 1v3.
Give him an inch, and he is one of few that will take it a mile. Problem is the bomb. That's the one thing that LFO hold over the head of this Russian rifleman. And the time is now getting less and less likely. Drops into spawn. Tagged up by the AWP. Now they know where he is. This has got to be a safe call for Inters. That turns from a very winnable situation to one in which he will not enjoy. Backs up. Save the rifle. Everyone else can go again. That's fine. Valde can drop over an AK to Jax. Motto, I think, might just be able to squeeze one out himself. We'll see what it looks like when the cash flow hits. No, forced onto a Galil, but that's okay. Look, I think TSM, they'll be happy to make that compromise. They know still very much what's at stake. A lot of damage, but no round. LFO still find themselves in pretty lukewarm water.
Yeah, they win, but it's with a grimace as they limp towards the next buy. And I'm very curious what kind of buy they've managed to muster out here. Yeah, so therein lies the problem. Lucky down to just one smoke. Exercise, just the one smoke as well. And there's only 2 kits make that across the board. So yes, they've got a buy. Yes, they can still absolutely make this work. But a couple of players a little bit low in terms of the grenades. That may catch them off guard later on in the round. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Time to see if LFO can back up what the statement said in the last. Org out on exercise yet again. These 3 M4s. There is an AWP out. That's the one luxury that LFO can hold over the heads of this TSM side. Maka's on the big green. The one thing I'm noticing quite quickly here is LFO have 1 smoke and 2 flashbangs to fend off a push and a possible retake for the next minute or minute and a bit.
Exactly. Yep. It's a big kill from Jax as well.
Oh, flanked.
Hadji had no chance, did he? He had to just push forward, had to try and fight his way out of there through pure bloodshed. And Maka burning alive, tried to push out, and it's just all the trades going the way of TSM. And LFO going into potentially the last round of this map, unless they can clutch, have a terrible buy ahead of them with some pistols and really not much else.
I can't believe TSM are doing it, to be honest with you. You know, we set this one up, and I think, you know, the players on the team will be the first to admit that it has not been easy for them in these first few months in this organization. This team hasn't gelled as well as maybe they'd like together. But you turn to the other side of the coin, and LFO are probably one of the teams in Tier 2 that, you know, when people say, oh, you know, what teams to look out for in the Tier 2 space, you know, you're going to say Aurora, you're going to say LFO. One of few names on that list that I think people will happily say are a strong suit in this tier of Counter-Strike. And TSM, you know, it's not just, oh, this is our pick and things are getting close. They're beating LFO in their own backyard. This is Nuke, you know, this is one of the LFO staples of a BO3. Last 2 timeouts being used, Vince. And as you say, this is a Hail Mary. This is SMGs, rifles, and anything in between. They're going to try and give LFO that last breath here on Nuke. 4 in a row required, and no mistake can be made.
Yeah, not a single foot can be placed in the wrong position. And to be fair, they managed to squeak out a much better buy than I was anticipating here.
It is true. The double loss is deceiving.
It certainly is. It does mean that we're not going to have any Kevlar for Jocko or Exercise. So they've dropped across like an M4, FAMAS, and MP9. So 2 players basically biting the bullet and saying, right, okay, boys, you carry for us. But they do have at least some rifles to play with it.
Interested to see that the M4 hasn't gone to Maka, considering how top-heavy the scoreboard is for LFO right now. You know, he's 22 and 13. Lucky's the next man in line. Well, Exercises on 12. I don't know. You know, you don't want to have ego, but let's give it to the guy that is shooting back the most right now. And speaking of Cypher, 12th kill of the game, but an impact that lasts a lifetime. It's 2 quick kills towards the site. It's a 2v4. Bomb down, Maka up the vent and out of the round. Cypher makes it 3. Cypher will make it TSMs unless Hadji can pull off 2 more.
One of them is low. Intis on very low HP. May get the drop though around the corner. And it is going to be Moto to finish this one off. TSM take LFO's choice of Nuke. 13-8. And make it look pretty comfortable in the process, Retro. I am very surprised at that outcome.
And, you know, the funny thing is, Vince, we were saying in the pre-show and even beforehand, you know, a quick chat before we went live, we said, like, look, realistically, this should be a 2-0 for LFO. They should be the better team on paper. But we said, if there is going to be a chance for TSM, it's going to be on their pick. And especially when we saw that overpass, we were saying, you know, they could definitely take overpass. They could push us to a 3rd. We were blind to the idea that this could happen. This could be the possibility because we head onto that TSM pick and they're already a map up to 1 in this series.
It's just absolutely madness. But we also did mention in the pregame segment, a lot of people are disappointed with this team because they've underperformed. Yes, they haven't been together for very long, but you look at the players, it's kind of 5 players that are very solid in previous iterations of teams coming together and hoping that it is going to gel and it is going to stick. And it hasn't so far, but at some point, you feel like that is going to start to turn in their favor. And maybe this is the beginning of that moment. I don't want to get too carried away. I don't think LFO played their best Counter-Strike, even remotely close. Maka was really the only player that shone as we expected him to. Hadji had a very, very quiet game, which was quite disappointing for him, I'm sure. But they still have a chance. Overpass isn't a trash map for LFO. They can still come back here and take us to a 3rd. So it's not over just yet.
Yeah, definitely. They get 10 minutes to mentally reset and then back into the action. A break for us. But when we return, we're talking all things overpass. LFO's life on the line.
Very complicated job, but I love simple things so much. One move. One push. One touch. One love. One click. One XBet.
Trying to get the skin of your dream for a long time but can't get it in any way? On our website you have a unique opportunity to get your favorite knife. Users on our site can hand out skins themselves, and participants need to fulfill some simple conditions. For example, watch a video or buy a case on our website. After that, you automatically become a member of the distribution. Go to the user giveaways tab and do what you like. Hellcase.
Watch the matches with bo3.gg, the official stats partner of CCT. Check out AI-powered predictions in live matches. Get access to live scoreboards packed with in-depth weapons and grenade statistics. Check out round maps in the match results. Extend your game vision with bo3.gg.
Yo, what are you doing?
Exhibit.
What do you think? I'm a paperclip? It's Mr. X to the Z. You need to quit browsing like a lame and get Opera GX. Because with GX mods, you can pimp your motherfucking browser. All you gotta do is click here, select the mod, and boom!
I'd expect to see TSM with some of their more individual prowess, especially shining through in that first map, to have a lot of the line share of these T-halves. Also, I'm a bit concerned actually at them starting on the CT side here, LFO, because if they're still yet to get out of second gear, then they start losing some of these force buys, these rifle rounds, and their economy just gets put into tatters and disarray. And Maka can't pick up his open, he can't dictate the pace of the action. You can end up having a bit of a horror story on this first half in TSM's favor. So that's another thing. If I'm LFO, I'm thinking about, right, we have to make sure we start this map well. Get the pistol, no mistakes, get a 3 or 4-0 lead, and then build off that foundation. You cannot afford to slip and slide early doors here and make mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. And time to realise that, right? Face the music is what LFO shall do. Start heading to overpass. Our second map, TSM, 1 up to now. Vince, as you said, LFO need to start figuring out how to deliver a half of Counter-Strike, because both of the halves on Nuke, they start with a pistol, a force, and a follow-up win. 3-0 up in both sides, won 6 rounds just in those alone. Game ended pretty soon after those 6, though, right? I think it was, what, 13-8 the end scoreline, and it's, well, you know, we could put together a good start, but you need to put together a whole half of Counter-Strike. Jack's great start. Oh my good God. He doesn't stop, does he? Piling into the site, taking matters into his own hands as Jax finds 3. Good night, LFO. We said they had to start with a bang. TSM take that right from them.
And Valda is going to have the easiest of kills onto Maka. Yeah, I mean, that really is the perfect start if you're your TSM, you know. You want to just crack things off with a bang, not let LFO get settled, not let them build up any kind of consistency, just rush straight at them. And Jax, those 2 opening picks with the Glock outside of Monster were beautiful. Insta headshots on both players, had absolutely no chance and no hope whatsoever. I know LFO are forced into that eco, so TSM can just carve themselves a path to a 2-0. Just to 1 MAC-10, so assume that Cypher is going to go out there first and try and run and gun and get some more money and print that cash. Meanwhile, LFO decide to 5-man stack up on the long side with their USPs and a P250 and see if they can run some shenanigans, but it's not looking good because the bulk of the Ts are over on the B side of the map.
Time to make some money, and especially when they 5-stack long and Cypher's the only A player, this is... it feels like you're digging for gold at this point.
One of those guys at the beach with a metal detector. You know, he's looking for some lost treasures, so I'm not sure he's going to find any.
Brought his sieve with him. He's ready to fish out something. It's a shame that LFO very quiet in this. Now that the steps have been made, I'm wondering if Cypher turns back around, because right now his back is to everyone. Okay, never mind, he's in connector. I read the map and I thought he was like out mid holding con. I was like, what is going on? But no, he's alright. Valdez come to join and support as well, so this could not be better timed. I think Cypher... Okay, going down the ladder. I thought I had the read. I thought they were going to push in together, you know, hold hands and fight the forces together, but no. Valdez been left on his own. Cypher clears con. Yeah, nothing here. And probably the most boring round of Counter-Strike we'll see today. 5 players saved for LFO. They don't want to give a penny over to TSM, and understandably so, because Cypher could have been a very... He could have retired, to be honest with you, had things gone to have planned with his MAC-10 and 5 players pushing long.
Yeah, it looks a bit of a silly round, all things considered. It's like, why are they saving in an eco round? It's not about that. It's about stopping Cypher from getting all those frags and that money. But also, I would be very surprised if LFO weren't treating that as a tactical timeout effectively, because they had nothing really riding on that round. So now they're all on the same page for this round, which is really the one that matters.
Definitely. Be nice to see what LFO can cook up on these rifles. Obviously, you even mentioned yourself, Vince, like, this is one of those maps that, yeah, maybe not as strategic as Nuke, but you still need to have good understandings and good fundamentals. The fact that we've come into this round, LFO, 5 M4s, 5 lots of head Kevlar, 2 smokes, 3 flashbangs, no mollies, no nades, no nothing. I feel like this is a very two-dimensional round for LFO. This is just going to be a straight up, we're going to try and block off a push with the smoke. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's going to be no active hold towards the site. They can't really do much to stop TSM pushing, just more themselves about being protective.
Yeah, exactly. And also prioritizing firepower over utility as well. Like having those head armors so you don't get instantly gooshed from like a Galil and just die straight away, or the MAC-10, which they would have heard from the last round for Cypher, who did fire a few shots off. So they're really stacking behind the idea of like, listen, we have to stand by ourselves and we have to try and frag down what we can. And Maka is doing just that. A lot of damage inflicted to both him and Looking. They've both been picked off. Maka dies to his own grenade. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Doesn't really matter though, as TSM are taking over now, picking up speed, looking to punish these CTs where they stand. But a really solid couple of kills, a flurry of frags from Hadji has kept them in this round, and with a chance, Inter's plants underneath their nose, but he's taking tons of damage through the smoke, and LFO will strike early, their first rifle round yielding the round itself, and giving them a chance to bounce straight back in this map.
Nice win for LFO, disappointing for TSM to be honest, because they had all of the right pieces in all the right places. The site push was unreal. Maka dies to his own Molotov, I do believe. Or, I don't know.
I think
maybe
so. I'm not sure what happened.
I don't know. Maybe we're going to have a replay POV of Maka. Oh, it is. He just sat in his own molly the whole time. I don't know how that's happened, but yeah, this double from Hadji, you even mentioned it. How successful that is. How key it is to a round win. Despite the problems that TSM definitely could have forced LFO to face. Bit of a tech pause before we head back in, but time to dwell, I think, for TSM on the fact that they just lost that round, but at the same time, newfound confidence, because that was a lot of damage done in a round that LFO put every penny in their bank account into.
Yeah, that's very true. That was effectively a bonus round, albeit a very top-heavy one. There's only one SMG for Cypher, but still, yeah, they come straight back in. They've got the AWP traded up to for Motto's and be very happy with that outcome. 4 AKs alongside it. And although LFO can replenish their fallen weapons without too many issues, they don't have an AWP of their own. And more importantly than that, 3 of the 5 players are below $400. So it's another very sketchy round for LFO. They have a lot more to play with than the last round, of course. Tons more grenades than last time around, which is prioritizing that head armor and the M4s. But they are only 1 loss away from being broken and TSM regaining some serious momentum. LFO throwing out the early grenades and just backing off.
Yeah, as you say, this will cut TSM some serious slack on this T side. Can afford to put their feet up a little bit. Spam going through the wooden panels. There's been some damage done, but nothing of significance. Motto leaping out of the way of the A4 spam. Jocko returning from his duties, aggressive on A as well. So it seems to be that LFO wanted to play a little more passive. Exercise fortunately stepped out so far in Monster there. The double nade stack didn't work out. They threw one as a late one just to see if Exercise would come back into the angle, but learns his lesson wisely. Hadji also finding Inters to start things out, so not ideal. I think a bit of a boost towards sight has caught the first off guard. A jump spot indicative of a second.
A lot of flirtation through on the wooden panels, but it's certainly going in favor of LFO. Cypher down to 32. Otto's taking a bit of damage as well, and of course that casualty onto Inters. 40 seconds left, and they've not checked alongside. They're going to go for it now, but it's Cypher who is low. He's going to have to get that insta headshot if he's going to best Jocko, but Jocko turns around. The battle of the gun betrays him. Meanwhile, Makado double taps into the head of Motto and tries to get himself back into the sanctuary of Bank, but he's found and fragged, and it's a 3-on-3 retake.
The fact that this is now a 3v3 and a post-plant for LFO is scary. Hadji playing with danger as he swings in towards the dumpster position. Lots of damage done through the wall. Jax is waiting on the other side as well. They've got to be careful, LFO, and they've got to pick up the pace. Exercise flank halt out.
Such a beautiful kill from Cypher there. Seeing the shadow, it betrays the oncoming CT, and that's all down to Hadji. And he doesn't fancy his chances. He's got no kit. He's got no smokes on Wallis to cordon off one of those areas of bathroom and making the correct decision. A full defuse there. No chance of clutching the round. Wants to hold on to his AK. But that does mean that TSM will take a 3-1 lead and put LFO back into a dire situation.
Who would have thought TSM 3v5? That shot from Cypher so integral. Oh, sorry, 3v4, not 3v5. But still, everything applies the same. TSM. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That round definitely should have been LFO's, but TSM walk away with it, and LFO forced onto an eco. We mentioned how strong the SART is. We said LFO need it to deliver a good first half. You know, we talk about the importance of the CT side on Overpass. LFO 1 for 4 right now. Not the way I think they envision this one to start. Now that is a very cool con smoke, and one that Jocko sees out the left corner of his eye, and from the right comes Cypher. Opening frag, Maka blocked off, and Cypher still holding on to this position. Hadji, the save gun has found success. P250 from behind, Mono will go down, or picked up. Can he do any more?
It is a primary weapon. You'd fancy him to have a good crack at this one. Playing patiently, passively, but does lose his head. Jax is holding the angle. Cypher also makes sure that no pesky CTs on the long flank can meddle with these plans. And the plan has come through, and that's a plant onto the truck. Jax still hiding in position. Valda has his cover on the side as well, and it's looking very good for TSM to extend their lead. It's a USP and a 5-7, and Lucky darts across. That is the superior weapon between the two that's been quelled, and the USP is not long for this world. That is the 4-1 lead, but a bye will be coming up.
Really nicely done, TSM. As you say, an investment will be the rebound for the fourth conceding of LFO. To number 6, and you know, I don't want to. I hate calling games too early, Vince, and I'm not saying that this is done by any means, because we've still got so many rounds of CS to play. But you can only feel that if things keep going the same that they are right now, LFO will fall deep into the sinkhole of CT side overpass. A great day to start. Need to turn things around. It's a great bit of damage done from Exercise, who finds 3. And now it's Jackson Valda left in the clutch, or in the hands of the IGL, and he will be no more. A Hadji Exercise combination, a full house of frags. And I was literally about to say, if LFO keep losing out and keep dropping further and further behind the front marker TSM, then there will be no way that we see a promising second half. But that is the breath of fresh air they needed.
Yeah, that grenade they tossed into Monster was a thing of beauty. You called it yourself. Tons of damage, but it also slowed them down and allowed Exercise to use this very position while they were also being sidetracked from Lucky, who was on the barrels. It was almost a perfect setup for this very play. But to play devil's advocate as well, Retro, I actually really like that TSM went for aggression like that, because now LFO are always going to have it in the back of their mind. When's the next time we have to deal with that very tactic?
No, it is true. Setting themselves up for more of the game plan than it is just for the single round. That is massive timing, and I think Jocko will know about it as well. Maka opener, Exercise a second. Valda at least gets one back, and Hadji being low means they're not far off the 3v3. Problem is, that entity that's flanking B right now is such a problem to this T side. Mono needs to win this fight with Lucky, and somehow he gets away with it. Galil against M4.
This is where Jocko should have him dead to rights, though. There's no way in a world that Mono expects this position, and he is carrying the bomb, he is dead. There was 0% chance he knew that that was a possibility, and that has probably just sent shockwaves down the spine of Inters and Valda, who were like, hold up a minute, how the hell has Jocko got in there? As you said earlier, the timing, pushing through the smoke as it was put on Playground, was so vitally important. And now Jocko has to hold his position. If he falls without doing any damage here, a 2-on-2 with about 35 seconds left, this is still very winnable for TSM. So can Jocko hold the line? That one kill should be good enough. Even if he falls, he did a lot of damage to Inters. And although Hadji himself is on low HP on just 5, it's hard to see how Inters is going to get this done with such low time. And he still doesn't even have the bomb. He's not even sure if the other CTs are watching from T-spawn or up on con side. He just doesn't have the time to clutch this round out right now.
Yeah, not the ideal way to end the round out, but LFO will say thank you. Third on the board, and a more promising time here as Inter's left to cower and save his rifle. Looking at the rest of the TSM economy, it's not going to be in a pretty place. I mean, this is very similar to the previous BO3 we watched, Vince, where it's like, the save is good, don't get me wrong, like the rifle is very useful in the hands of Inters, but the problem is for the rest of the squad, they're now going to have to full eco because we're on double loss and everyone's already got their bonus. So there's no need to invest here. We can all buy in the next, but then it's Inters that suffers. But he's the guy with the AK now, so it's like this catch-22 of do we buy or do we not? TSM are going to take 30 seconds to talk it out before they make their decision. LFO in the meantime, it's a very obvious choice, and that is they're just going to keep the rifles going.
Yeah, keep the good times rolling here if you're LFO. Continue to just twist the knife and apply that pressure wherever possible. It seems like it will just be Inters on the hero. I was going to say hero buy. It's the hero save. It's a bit of an antique, that AK now. It's been around for a while. Has a HE alongside it. Curious if they do go for some more aggression, or they just try and let Inters do what he does. Get out there, get a couple of entries, pick up some weapons from the CTs. I guess we'll find out right now. There is a smoke and a flash that Valda's also picked up. So maybe B is going to be the site of choice, yeah.
I think so too. I mean, smoke would make sense. Maybe like mid-site smoke, get the pillar flash going. All funnel out of Monster. He's lining up as if he wants to throw something towards short, though. So I'm wondering if they're going to try and pile in that way. Allowing Inters to take first contact. Got to be careful for this spam. And it is a narrow miss, but Inter's tucking into cover before things get a bit too scary.
Did take hefty damage, though, and unfortunately, he can't trade that AK to anyone else because there's no Kevlar. So in punch is a thing. Jocko again sneaking around the back, wants to try and line up as many players as possible. But Valda will be the only player, I think, that he's going to devour. And devour he shall. Now they know he's behind them, then they're clumped up. They're stuck on the short side. They have no con control, no short control either from the sandbags. It's looking like fish in the barrel here for LFO, and they'll be loving this position. Surely they can't lose from this spot. This should be a gimme every day of the week. And Exercise makes sure that he makes short work of Inters. So that is the AK and the Kevlar that's gone with him.
Nice as well that they're allowing basically a different person to take contact every time. I know Lucky gets aggressive there and finds the ending 3k, but it's the Monster player that takes the first contact, the flank that gets the kill, and then, well, we allow someone to push in towards short. Then the Monster player will take the contact again, and it's just trying to turn heads and move crosshairs away from allies. Lucky just walking in here. Got to be careful because he did get dinked in the first engagement, but flashbang from Exercise good enough to preserve life. And we are all tied up at 4 each. While it was a good start for TSM, their lead now voided. A rifle on rifle buy to see who will keep the lead, or take it, in fact, in round number 9.
This is where we get to see what TSM have up their sleeve. A team that have had their own struggles. It's easy to forget that after that nuke performance, but they have been far from perfect of this last couple of month period, and this is where they're going to get tried and tested significantly. Yes, it's a CT-sided map. There's no mistake in that at all, but the fact that they had LFO against the ropes and LFO now just brute forcing their way back out again and making a bit of space for themselves could be a bit of a concerning sign if you are TSM. So getting a stranglehold back over on this map and bringing the economy down a couple of pegs is very much a required feat that needs to happen right here, right now. They already have a bit of short control from Inters, and they're starting to move up systematically into bathroom. So the opening minute or so has looked a lot sharper here from TSM, at least in round 9.
Valda, a single step towards the A side of things. I think he knows at this point, well, I might as well release my shift key and make it a little quicker. Already know we're here. 35 seconds left. Really late in the round here. They are making the late lunge, but making so much noise towards A has caused a third rotate to come up. Maka, I think, playing from heaven, so there's only 2 players actually committed to this site defense. If there's a smoke that goes up, problematic for the CT side.
And they spill. Inters takes the first. 12 seconds left. They've got to get on the site right now. Tons of kills, but the bomb is the main important part of the puzzle. They're going to have enough time for the plant. Just about by the skin of their teeth, they've got this one done. And now in a 2v5 retake, it's looking dire circumstances for LFO to get this one done. Maka and Lucky both pivot in for kills, but they're completely isolated from one another. So it's a bit of a false narrative, because in terms of getting the clutch, almost 0%. It does mean TSM will put themselves back into the lead again. It was a very close round, and all those kills came with about 10 seconds to spare.
Yeah, that is the risk about leaving it late, isn't it? Either all the kills go your way or they don't, and the round takes so long setting it up could just be open and over in a heartbeat. But very much an open case for TSM to prove that they can deliver on this T side. This shot from Inters, by the way, that's got to be some sixth sense or some knowledge that Looking4Org like to get behind their monster smokes, but a straight spam through it connects every bullet. LFO lose the early man, and then from there everyone just piles in towards B. They know the power comes with numbers, especially in a 5v4 like that. And LFO themselves, well look, you've got the money to rebuy. You can facilitate the lost rifles and repurchase with your funds, but the problem is you can't keep relying on the bank account because your interest hasn't gone up and things are looking pretty bleak for the balances of all 5.
I think bleak is a pretty apt description at the moment. Because even though LFO did make that kind of surge, that second wind in the early stages of this map, they're already down 1 map. They're currently trailing by 1 round on the CT side of Overpass, and there's no guarantees they'll get any more rounds after this one. So things are looking a little bit dicey right now, but they still have their own destiny in their own control. 3 players on the B side, yet to push aggressively onto short. HE toss through monsters, going to hit absolutely nobody. It's another slow start to the round for TSM, but they do at least have some real estate for themselves on short and also just outside of monster, plus connector control. So that's going to be a bit of a concern for LFO. They're not entirely sure what to expect here.
45 seconds, still moves to be made by TSM. A smoke blocking off a whole lot of knowledge right now. Exercise fumes in his way. 3 players have crossed under his nose. Inter's now making noise through it. 4 players on short. This is another late B dive. This is another late execute. But this time a little more equipped, this LFO side.
That's a massive entry as well. The first kill going the way of Lucky is huge, but he has fallen down. Do they expect 2 players to be stacked on Monster? 1 sprays out. Now there's the second one, but they need to clean this one up. Jax with 15 seconds has to go walking, has to get this entry, does pick it up, but it's at great cost to his health. 10 seconds now, but they've been smoked off on the heaven position, and so therefore Motto should be favorite to get this bomb plant down. And he's not going to be fragged on the return either, as he just hides in the smoke. He has a good read of the situation up on heaven, and a 2-on-2 retake is going to ensue.
Motto needs to be careful because a naught from heaven and then the rifle from CT. It's going to be tricky. And Maka plucks him right through it. Jack's getting smoked off as well. 2 flashbangs. Going to jump up. You can now play on this elevated angle on short. I think you can even make the sandbag move work. But he's got his crosshair firmly placed on the bomb defuse. Flashbang blinds up the first. Flashes again. It's so blind. Jax pulls him off and there's no time to defuse. Maka had to commit to the fight because his teammate was full flashed. And Jax, with utility alone, pulls both eyes off the bomb. And TSM takes 6.
I loved that the first flash he intentionally put slightly outside the smoke to grab the attention, and the second one detonated in the smoke. He knew they turned back around to be facing on the short side and fully flashed both of them, forcing him to come off the plant. As you say, great play from Jax. So very smart. And that will get TSM a 6-4 lead and breaking LFO's funds once more. They have to dip down to some 5-7s.
And speaking of Jax, what a game he's having here in map 2, right? 12-6, top of the server. AD looking strong. Exercise might add 1 to his tally. Inter's slow start here on Overpass as well. Gets caught out. Jax needs to be careful. Committing to a fight at head height with Maka is never something you want to do, AK against 5-7. We'll find the shots that connect the dots. So that 2-man deficit not quite found. They'll definitely know the information and have the read as to what LFO are up to. Something cheeky towards B, so they elect to go forward on A. Lucky and his 5-7. That flash is going to leave him very blind and very dead. Motto setting Cypher up for the entry. 4v3. Bomb plant should follow suit, and that should really be that. But I'm wondering if LFO want to delve any deeper into enemy territory and find themselves some more exits.
I think probably want to hold on to this Galil. I mean, the money they can buy into the next round. So this is a very tentative, like, it's dangling on the end of that wire, you know? Do they want to bite? Do they want to go in for this or not?
Yeah.
I'm really not sure. Now that smoke is cleared, they're going to have the answer. And it looks like the 5-7s are very interested in the prospect of going in for this one, but it's only Jocko by himself. The other 2 players are holding back. He does get the frag, but there's not enough time for this diffuse regardless, so the Galil is piecing out of there. They wanted to try and maybe take a couple weapons away, and that was about all they were aiming for. So TSM survive with 3 players strong and a 7-4 lead.
Last of the half, a nice little jingle we get in CS2 to tell us that. A quick addition would realise that this could be a very similar situation to that of Nuke. Could it be 8-4? Could it be TSM that lead? T-side overpass, by the way. I mean, even if they lose this, Vince, I think they can call this a success at the halftime whistle. This is a brilliant half for TSM. No matter the result of the last, you walk away with a lead heading into your CT side.
Yeah, you better believe they would be very happy if you offered them 7-5 lead at the start of this game. They'd have ripped your hand off. Maybe a bit more disappointment, the competitors in them, if they can't get to that 8-4 score. Especially as LFO have been on the ropes multiple times. A big kill from Jocko, though, holding on to connector control, but he's been found. However, because the backs were turned from short, it allowed Hadji an exercise to get aggressive. And that is 3 quick-fire kills for LFO, a golden opportunity to secure that 5 rounds come the second half now.
So maybe LFO have hidden down, not on the retake in the last, but on the idea of claiming a lifeline in this one. 50 seconds left for Motto and Valde to find a combination that cracks the 2v4.
Still the opportunity.
Yeah.
If they can get a kill, there is a way forward here, though, Retro. This round's not done just yet.
It's not, especially when Valde goes pushing, and this is all undetected. CT side so passive. Don't know what it is, but it feels like we're scared to take a fight right now for LFO. I guess trying to lock in the information before the retake. Maka wanted to take first contact, and he does so. Motto right in the crosshair, and into the jaws of Valde will walk. Lucky, but 10 seconds left. Minimal time, that nade. Oh, it could have been massive onto Maka. Noise being made. 4 seconds left. I don't even think he has time. Taps it again. Who shall peek? Nobody. It's Hadji from behind that will get the kill. 5 for LFO. And yeah, a little bit disappointed for TSM because they started so well and things ending not so much. But you can't deny that 7 rounds on your T side. It is so much to offer, especially when you're heading onto that CT side, right? So much to offer, and you don't really need every round, you know? You can afford to lose a pistol. Not that they want to, but you definitely can. And it's going to be LFO that are always fighting on the back foot.
I think when you consider that this was 4-1 lead to TSM at one point at the opening of the half, to come out 7-5 is going to be a bit disappointing, but it's still overall, in the grand scheme of Overpass, a really, really solid result. Because as you say, LFO are going to be on the back foot, especially if they concede this pistol round. They're going to be looking at a potential sort of 9-10-5 score for TSM. And we saw that when it got that close on Nuke towards the finish line, they couldn't do anything to shift into that 3rd, 4th gear to really up their game. So make no mistake, the pressure is very much on LFO's shoulders right now. The pistol is one of many things they're going to have to jump through. So we have a bit of a tech issue, unfortunately, here, but it seems like we are getting towards starting anyway. So let's have a look as to what LFO have up their sleeves. It looks like it's going to be, for the most part, full Glocks. P250 have been purchased, and a smoke and a flash for Hadji.
Team player. With only 1 belt of utility, I guess this has to be quite a fast play, or at least well choreographed. I mean, playing a 2-3 setup on a pistol is not something I'm too keen in seeing. I'll let them do the talking. I was going to say starting 3A, but having your util man towards where the bomb isn't is an interesting choice. Jax flashed in. Doesn't matter. Hadji does get eventually that the assist, the setup, the alley-oop there, but TSM walking away with a numbers game in their favor as Motto able to catch out the outlier. It's exercise that pushes A. And, well, his hand forced.
I think it's safe to say that Jax as well is proving a point here against his former teammates. 14-8 he currently sits on. Both pistols, he's had tons of impact. A kill in this round, and 3 in the first pistol. Motto somehow still alive.
Wow.
As they run out, and he gets 1 kill. A lot of damage, a second frag as well for Motto. Had no right to even live through Connector, and instead is the guardian angel of TSM and gets them a second pistol round.
I cannot believe LFO and how they've just been robbed of that. Motto with an unbelievable piece of movement and accuracy. Dips out a Connector, threatened by 3, still walks away with 1.5 in terms of damage. And LFO, yet again, growth stunted early doors. It's TSM that take the pistol. It's TSM that forced the hand of this T side. And I don't know if this is desperation or confidence, but either way, LFO forced into round 14. So losing here, they're going to have to play from 5-10. The deficit is massive, and the repercussions even bigger. Got to remember, loser of this series is out of the tournament. And what a name to take for TSM if that's the case.
I think it's safe to say that LFO were the favorites coming into this game. They are world ranked in 29th position. A lot of the odds were certainly favoring them. And TSM now on the brink. If they break them down here, of being on the fast track to a potential 2-0. Cypher again, as is so often been the case, in the right position. Oh, it's a target-rich environment, and Cypher snatches the life of 3, and in doing so may have just won the TSM the round.
That is an unbelievable hat-trick of frags. Hadji's there to pick up the gun, but it's Maka, the man that holds all the HP. Jack's a sensible decision. Smoke right in the face of connector. No one will push through. You can't rotate. You are stuck towards A. With 40 seconds left, I mean, LFO don't really have much of a choice. You just got to commit together. You got to hope that something works. But whatever it is, as you say, Cypher finding a hat trick has more or less shut the book for LFO here in round 14.
Oh, Maka trying to bait Jax out. I like the idea. Nearly working out does, but it's too little too late. There's 15 seconds left. And with Hanji limping, the walking wounded on 12 HP.
This is so confusing to me.
It's
Look,
been crazy,
I understand that you've got an M4 and Maka, realistically, Deagle Scout combination. Like, that is cool. But when LFO's discussion in this round is, okay, in the previous now, it's we force here. If we lose, we can just take an eco and fight from 10-5. I don't think the plan was to save 2 weapons and then completely imbalance the economy to the point where, look, Maka and Hadji, it doesn't matter if they full save or not, the 2,900 loss bonus they get is barely going to cover a Galil and full Kevlar. You know, maybe a smoke on top of that as well if you're lucky. If you find a kill here, trick yourself to a Molotov. But that is it. LFO are not going to have 5 AKs heading into this next round. This is it was a gamble taking a force buy in the last. It's a roll of the dice blindly in this round to then take a save and hope that you can recover from 10-5, having kept 2 people with no money and loss bonus only at 3.
I like that they had the confidence to go for it, but the risk didn't really seem like it was worth the reward, you know? And
agreed.
If they did win that round, they break TSM, they get all their weapons and all that good stuff, but that's a big if, and that's not what's worked out for them. Cypher pretty much just said no single-handedly, and it's not just the 3 kills he picked up, he got a dink afterwards as well, like just unbelievable impact from him. But yeah, as you say, the foreseeable future for LFO is looking pretty grim indeed. They need some success here. They still have 2 weapons that can one-tap alongside the Deagle, so it's actually 3. It could still make this one work. It's unlikely. It's going to be very difficult with time already getting towards 45 seconds. But if they can burst out of bathrooms here and catch Cypher off guard, maybe they can steamroll this site yet. And there's another couple of chapters to be written.
35 seconds. You two are going to get dumped towards this site. Cypher and Motto playing a buddy system, ready to face. Motto blind, so Cypher has to turn. 2 for the price of 1. Valde now, the steel wall has to be put up. And to be fair, if you want one person here, it's Valde, but he's only good for damage.
About flanking, they didn't get the kill from the flank either. They missed out on their chance. Both players came through on con side. They may not realize that Maka's up close. Now they found him. They fragged him down with a flashbang alongside. The HP, though, is pretty even. Inters and Hadji are both walking so very slowly, hemorrhaging from their wounds. Time dwindling away, but there is a kit in both of these hands. Flashbang up and over. They've got off smoke as well if they want to use it. And a bit of an off spray from Exercise cost him and Hadji their lives. It was looking like LFO had stolen this round away, but TSM were able to hold on for dear life as they hit double digits first.
That bomb plant makes all the difference from LFO, but it's another round that you bury your head in your hands. Maka, what a performance. I think he was the man with the scout, if I'm not mistaken. So much damage done from the scout. I think tagged 2 people, killed another. Unbelievable set of affairs, and as I said, with the extra $800 per player, there's an AWP dropped on the floor. They are ready to go once again. But this is it for LFO. Can't win this round, you will not win the game, and you will not win the series. Because 11 will turn 12. So let's see, LFO, what fight do you have in the system? What can you do to bend and break this TSM defense?
That nade damage though, Retro, is just shredded 3 players.
Insane. All susceptible to the one dink as well. You've got to consider so much damage done that TSM piling on M4s in this round. There were no AKs to save. They didn't have any from previous. Which means Maka exercised Jocko just as dead to an M4 as they would be to an AK.
Exactly, softening up the targets as they push. It's unconfirmed damage, of course. LFO still moving forward, refuse to surrender or retreat. Jocko wants to try and push that smoke. Life is in a very awkward position here. Any kills would be very welcome outcome for TSM, but he will fall without getting anything in return. Valor decides to pick up the pace, pushes out into long alone. He has been spotted though from the jump peaks. A grenade up and over as Maka will pick off his opposite number IGL, and they maintain the player advantage in doing so, but there's only 30 seconds left.
Modo. Oh, Modo, nearly a collateral, but he'll take 2 individually. Haji next up to the chopping block. Modo wants to be careful. Smoke towards connector, fires through blindly. Doesn't know where Haji's going to be, but this is all a bait play. Why would Jax be playing short? Why would the bomb get dropped there? And it's all on Lucky. 1 versus 3. And Jax looking to ride the wave solo, but there's not enough time for Lucky to do it all. He'll try and take whatever he can scramble for, but there is no time to plant. There is no time to win out this clutch. And the Frenchman left to save 11 for TSM. And another dent in this LFO economy. Because no money for Lucky. He gets to keep his rifle at least. I can't even think that that's something that LFO are going to celebrate about. TSM, 2 rounds to go until they knock LFO out of this tournament. What a statement it would be.
Oh, and TSM just make them stew on it as well, Retro. They're like, listen, we're 11-5. You just got bodied. Let's hold a quick tactical timeout. You have to think about that one, lads.
And it'll be a good time, I think, for TSM to discuss what happened in that round as well. Like, as much as it will be frustrating for LFO to sit on those 30 seconds, I've got to say, Valda, the decision-making on long there, probably not his best work. Obviously, Cypher dies in toilets to a long push. That should be a given at this point. Well, they can be all the way up. As soon as Valda commits, he either needs to commit and get into cover and hope a teammate can flash, or he just backs up completely because he was sort of stuck between the 2 ideas, sat in no man's land. 1 nade came over, Orp just cyclopsed onto the angle, just held it, and unfortunately Valde was there and a victim to the big green. But lucky for TSM, because that is a very small piece to that TSM puzzle. They cracked the code in 16, heading into number 17. This feels like the last dance for LFO, and even then it's a steep half by. Knowing the loss bonus is strong, they try and do the best they can with the money that they have.
It's like a last dance, and their ankles have been tied together. They can barely move with just these 2 rifles and 3 pistols. But move they shall. They've had a lot of success with likes of Deagles in the past. Have made TSM sweat quite a few times with both nuke and now overpass, but they're not checking their angles, and they will be punished as a result. Makado comes out swinging on long side. Cypher with 1, lands a dink on the second player, and there is Jax with a fast flank to capitalize and clean up the rest. Sweep them back under the rug again. Maka's been spotted, forced out into the open. Jocko shuts down Jax from the back, but now they know exactly where he is. The good news for Jocko, however, is he does have possession of the bomb, so that at least makes TSM respect his prowess in this round. They're going to play the buddy system and stick together, which honestly makes a lot of sense. Even if you concede the post plant, you've got to make sure you play together as a united force and get the counter frag in.
Like that, this is all contacts heavy for Jocko as well. Makes no noise until he's ready to plant the bomb. Clears the site, gets the info, punches in those digits, enters a Modo. Just got to work together. Only 1 kit between them and no utility means, yet again, it's one of these where they're going to have to think about what they want to do. What happens if he's playing distance? What happens if he's playing range? Well, it doesn't matter now because Modo knows that he's there. Brings out the sidearm, never mind, it's the AWP. He was going for the kit, just used his movement speed as he pulls the AWP to his side. And TSM take 12, map and series point. And it feels like right now, TSM with an infinite amount of attempts to try and close it. The gap is so vast between the two, Vince. TSM can take their time. They can pick the round they want to do it in. Calculative work from the CT side. And while LFO have pace, it's TSM that have the power.
It's a very good way of putting it, isn't it? You can run as fast as you want, but if it's into a brick wall, Retro, it's going to leave a mark.
Yeah.
7 chances, 7 cracks at the whip. There is a goodbye for LFO, but it could just be goodbye if they don't win this round.
Pretty insane. Nice start from Hadji at least. Cypher from Connector, flashbang from Jocko, a peach to kill off the AWP. Inter's dropped as well. And look, this is a good round from LFO. It's a shame it's like 6 rounds too late in the game. Really well worked. B play is perfect. The flashes off one another, the contact plays, everything just works so nicely. But, you know, at 5-12, it feels like a very insignificant round to be winning in terms of a series scoreline.
Taken separately from the situation, this is a really clean round from LFO. I mean, I guess in this kind of situation, it's looking really, really poor. It's looking bad. But look at the positives. You know, we've seen many teams come back from this kind of deficit before, even take it to a 3rd map and win the 3rd map. They're still in this game. As long as they're breathing, as long as they're still in with a chance, never give up, never back off. Very, very clean round. This is where if I'm Macro, I'm trying to rally the troops. I'm trying to hype people up here. They're not done just yet. They have the ability. They haven't really played anywhere close to their potential in this best of 3. It's never too late to start. TSM into an eco, a very good chance for LFO to just start to put those rounds together and get closer and closer to a tied result.
You are right. If you're going to want to win this game, it's got to be taken on a round-by-round basis. Can't afford to jump the gun and think problems are resolved after a single round's worth of success. Same time, it's weird because Jax is $750. Inter's just picked up 300 by killing off with the 5-7. He had 950 heading into this round. So it's not a force buy, but it's not a full eco. It's the grey area in between. Somehow the 5-7, as I said, picks up the opener though. AK dropped towards Monster. Molotov to try and force Inter's away, just deny him of that rifle. So more pairs of eyes are looking down the barrel of the pipe. 3 of which will conjoin. Make it a 4th. Exercise in the distance. Saw him in the background. This is a B play, and in fact for TSM a B stack.
Not like this, LFO. Not like this. Surely not against just pistols. Now we're walking in, wounded, limping, and Mono is putting them down where they stand with that deagle. Whether it's the AWP or the deagle, it doesn't matter. His aim is surgical. But still, LFO have a chance. Still, they're alive. Still, they're kicking. But it could be Valda's unknown position that clutches this one up.
Maka turns. Right place, right time for the rifleman to stand. Gets the signature gun for himself. Big green wielded. Wanted to protect Hadji from the bomb plant. Was cautious of what could come in the flank. A keen eye will spot the TSM IGL in the distance. Valda no more. 12-7. At least LFO get another. And as I said, because it wasn't a force, but because it wasn't a full eco, TSM, they have to eco again. They are in a weird position where we go for the upgraded pistols once more. A little bit of Kevlar this time to work with it. And LFO with another.
Arrow miss out. Bit of damage, but not good enough to yield the kill. Inters goes back in with a 5-7. And another kill for Valda. They're making this another scrappy, awkward round for LFO, but the superior firepower now starting to shine and prevail. A 1-on-3. Inter's last spotted on short side on B. Is still there, still residing in the same position. And this would put LFO up to 8 rounds. It was effectively a double 4/eco. So TSM will have a very solid buy into the next round, of course. But LFO looking very good to at least get 8 here. I can't see how Inters even goes in for this, to be fair. I imagine he just holds on to the AK and saves it for the next round.
Yeah, it'd be smart. You're not punished as much as the CT side for saving. You do get your loss bonus still, so a bit of extra cash to supply head Kevlar, the utility, everything else. I'm wondering within Modo's calculations of this round, has he got enough money to buy an AWP in the next? Because 3k plus double loss puts you dangerously close to a glass cannon. Maybe Valda's going to have to be the man that ships off the big green to his teammate and friend. We'll see. Anyway, 8 on the board for LFO. Looks a lot better than it did here, Vince, but, you know, maybe I'm just a realist. I'm still next to no belief in this LFO side. When the scoreline looks closer, maybe I'll give it a thought. But right now, TSM still got 1 in 4 chances to close, 2 of which are going to be full buys. A force buy on top of it if it does go the distance. Surely in those 4 rounds presented, TSM find 1.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely fair to hold that view, and keep in mind the last 2 rounds, so it was 6-12, and the last 2 rounds were basically in pistols for TSM. It's not like they've won 2 rifle rounds back to back, and LFO have cruised them. So I still agree with you. Obviously, it's a much more respectable score than 5 or 10 minutes ago. You would think the TSM still have the winning combination and formula to take this one down, but LFO may just be building up that confidence. Hadji, by the way, should be mentioned, has had a stellar performance here. The rest of his team haven't really helped him out too much, but he's on 22 kills and has had so many impact frags. So definitely deserves a bit of a nod because he was one of those weaker players on Nuke. And of course, as I say that, he nearly gets fragged from short side. 6 HP separates him and his demise.
Lucky to be walking away from that one alive, to be honest. Definitely should have been punished for his actions, but I guess wounded better than dead. 1 minute and 15 for LFO to make that decision. The one thing I will give them is, while that single engagement is going on, you know, Hadji's taken damage, but look at the amount of presence that LFO have gained across the map. We've found ourselves outside toilets, we've got a bit of long space, the whole of Monster is currently under control by Lucky. It's not a bad position to be in. Flash is exceptional though, and Valda will know there's 2 players there. A counter flash thrown in merely a second after. But that's brought Valda so much information, and the problem is, this takes time to clear out where Valda is.
100%, that's exactly it. And he's got a kill, that's so good. So much damage, so much time, and he also forced out a Molotov and a flashbang, meaning they don't have any more mollies for the rest of this round. Valda getting 1 kill there is worth its weight in gold. That is so important.
25 seconds left, and they chop and change to the direction yet again. Jax playing from hell, enters in water. He's thinking about going up. This is a bad mistake to be making. Jax needs to turn back around and help his friend. Hadji entering with the AWP, low HP, not scared of a fight. Inters wants to tuck and play for the seconds. There's only 8 of them left. Someone's going to have to plant. Someone has to go for a denial. Inters, is he going to be the man? No, Lucky with a double. In fact, a hat-trick of frags. And it is all on Cypher. 1v3. Now's the first, but no kit. And I think that's going to push him away from this scenario.
Well, that's a bit surprising. I think he might be going for the long con, the long flank here. Knowing that his chances of clutching out through on short are very low. No, he's actually going to go for the save. I'm a bit surprised at that, honestly. I feel like in a 1v2, he's got to fancy himself to win that round, but playing a bit more conservatively, a little bit more careful. Lucky with a beautiful triple. But that's going to be a very disappointing round if you're TSM. After all the work that Valda did in the toilets to still lose out. That's going to sting. I know LFO are just getting us that little bit closer now. This is the moment where I think TSM will start to sweat a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a tactical timeout called in this round or the next one if they do concede again. But LFO are getting closer and closer, breathing down the necks now of TSM.
That is massive. 9 on the board. Cypher, of course, keeping an M4. Inters gets one for himself. MP9, Deeg, P250. And pick and mix some weapons to try and help TSM in their drought of a 13th. Flash is lobbed. Cypher, I like this boost. I feel like it's quite old school. Exercise going for the jump spot. Cypher definitely would have heard the feet on the ground, but the question is, can he find the damage? Well, information and a bit of a tickle onto Exercise, but a nade to try and keep distance And Cypher, to be fair, now's the shot, but 2 in response from Hadji and Jocko.
I like the idea. Hasn't quite worked out as TSM were hoping. If it had been the USP player that had died and Cypher was able to scamper away, that would have been excellent. But now the MP9, Valda goes looking and finds the information, but at great cost to his own health bars. Looking good for a 12-10. Are you beginning to believe yet, Retro? Or are you still a little bit pessimistic about this comeback?
Look, I am now starting to believe a little bit more. Because if you take the score lines, I know it's the same game, but at 2 different points. From 12-5, you're probably like, yeah, no, that's not happening. But then from 12-10, you know, it's a lot more likable, right? It's, yeah, you know, it's only 2 rounds. I know momentum plays a big part of it as well, so fair play to the LFO boys for getting here, but you've still got to understand, TSM, not so much in this round, but 2 more very adequate chances, and they only need to take one of them well. And that'll be the end of LFO's time in the online finals 4. So, you know, you've still got to face the music if you're LFO, but I can understand that there is some belief behind this T side as well now. And to be honest, the thing I'm enjoying most right now is the fact that Maka is insistent on playing with a rifle. There's been no AWP for the T side, you know, it hasn't felt very constraining. It hasn't been, okay, let's let Maka take a fight and then, you know, let's regroup off of what I find in my AWP and here's my call, considering I have the big green. This is 5 rifles that are playing for trade, playing together, taking that step up from what we saw in the previous 20 rounds, and going, yeah, you know what, we can actually do this. Let's get our game faces on. And it's working a charm right now for LFO, but for TSM, complete opposite story for themselves.
I like the versatility, and you have to have that as an IGL. You know, it must be a hard balancing act when you're in IGL and AWP.
And, you know, the AWP is kind of synonymous with Counter-Strike. You know, every team has to have an AWP throughout the history of Counter-Strike. It's always been the case. So to be in IGL and realize, like, okay, the AWP's not working, I should stick with a rifle, especially after, keep in mind on Nuke, he was by far the best player for LFO. He landed a 1.66 rating with 102 ADR in a game they lost 13-8. So you can understand why you'd have that kind of confidence. Switching to the rifles had a lot more power, but he's gone back to the AWP again here. So very curious if he's going to have any impact.
Two to go. TSM taking another timeout, I think, realizing, yeah, hold on a minute, maybe this is going to be a little bit more tricky than we once thought to close. Two chances. This one better than the other. Let's see what TSM have cooked. They had that 30-second blitz. Hopefully it's used as more of a level setter, right? This is it, you know. We know the situation. Let's just keep calm and play our game rather than trying to think of something outside the box. A missed nade has just cost Maka 13 points of health. Jocko will be frowned upon for the remainder of round 23.
And that puts him in headshot range of those M41Ss, by the way. So, effectively, that's upgraded the weapons to AKs as far as Maka's concerned. And they've lost Lucky.
Oh dear.
This has been a horrendous start for LFO in such an integral moment.
That's massive. As you say, it's Maka, the one that's now open to the bruising and punishment of the M4. It's TSM that have found a kill elsewhere to get that man advantage. 50 seconds left. I mean, to be fair, the saying does go, diamonds are made under pressure. Are LFO going to sparkle or are they going to crack? It's Jax waits, leg spotted, and that is enough. He can't shoot back quicker than Jocko can get ammunition out of his gun. Lead hits the waters, a nade as well to try and block off the French side's push, and that's where the diversion happens. This is no B play, this is a con push.
Valda knows it, and he's in such a good position right now. He's hearing so much information. He pinces in, takes one kill, but drops down to the second player. But because of his fast rotation, he's allowed his CTs, his brethren, to get into position to thwart this push, and thwart they shall. The Romanian Moto goes in again for 2 and a third and takes this map by the scruff of the neck, knocking LFO out in the process as they lose 2-0 to TSM.
What a way to end it as well, and to be honest, it's poetic that Moto's the man to close. He's had a great series, to be honest with you. On Nuke, I felt like he had really high impact. He was always in the kill feed. He was always there to help the boys. And they're on Overpass, maybe not the loudest game in terms of the AWP matchup, right? And him specifically in terms of a team environment. But my God, that 3K so integral. And as I said, man, the time was the biggest issue. They knew once they rotated to A, they had to commit. They couldn't afford to go back down because they gave up all that presence and basically forced into a corner and a shooting gallery for Motto as he claims the second and only map required for TSM as they move through to the lower bracket round 3. And it is LFO we wave goodbye to.
It is indeed, and I think, honestly, TSM, they can hold their heads high. Yes, they did allow LFO to make them a little bit shaky and scared towards the end of that second map, but if you consider how dominant they were for most of this best of 3 on Nuke and then Overpass, a well-deserved win. I don't think LFO showed what they were truly capable of. We had glimpses. Hadji played fantastically well on that second map, but like in the first map, it was the Maka show. It felt like one player was shining while the rest of them were quite dulled down and not really doing much. Whereas on TSM, everyone was pulling their weight for the most part. We had moments from every single player. Definitely.
And I think for another player I'd like to mention, Cypher, right? I think he was 0-6 on Nuke. He turned that around. He only went -3, and then on Overpass, it's like, how many times was his name mentioned in the kill feed when it came to entries and those crunch moments towards the B side? How many times is he there to show up? Valde, an unbelievable performance. Vince, you were saying in the pre-show, you know, even years ago, Valde was renowned for his fragging potential. And again, he's just stepped up. He takes the calls, and he's also willing to take fights. And that combination, alongside Inters having a better performance than most as of recent, and Motto stepping up with the AWP, and Jax even on Overpass, what a game he had. As you say, I don't think there is a single player you can single out in a particular way that was poor for TSM or subpar. Everyone just worked well. And that's a breath of fresh air, I think, for us and for TSM, because it's been the real struggle for them, and they know it just as well as we do. They needed results, and we weren't seeing that out of them. LFO as a name to take, yeah, maybe sure, we can boil some of it down to the fact that LFO didn't have everyone playing at their A game, but you can't take anything away from TSM, because, yeah, sure, 5 rounds of Overpass look pretty scary, and the game looks pretty close, but everyone played some lights-out Counter-Strike today, and they are the deserved winners of this BO3.
100%. You know, and Valde may not have had the greatest performance on Overpass individually, but he was the guy on Nuke. If you missed that game, he was everywhere. Like, he was omnipresent. He had dropped a 1.34 rating. He was the best player statistically for TSM, and really, like, bullying, honestly, LFO on most of those CT rounds. So, yeah, I think this is more of a TSM that we were hoping to see. There's still some gaps, some chinks in the armor. I think it's safe to say there were some moments that you're a little bit like, was that the play? Was that the call? But this is a team that's still pretty new, and I think that there's a very bright future ahead of them. I just hope they stick together long enough to realize that potential. Whereas LFO, it's back to the drawing board for these guys. I think they didn't show even remotely how good they can actually be. It was a disappointing performance. You know, I've got to be honest, I felt like they were the favorites coming into this game, and yet they've just been blitzed 2-0. And other than that comeback towards the end, it was very one-sided on Overpass.
Yeah, definitely. So there we go at the halfway point of today. 4 maps of Counter-Strike and 2 teams in the lower bracket round 3. It sets up our first game in the lowers. It is, of course, TSM taking on Sinners. It will be Jay and Dweg taking you through Guild Eagles alternate attacks. But before that, 0-0 Nation and Into the Breach. That'll set up the other side of the lower bracket. Of course, both of those games in the exact same situation as this one. Lose and you're out. The stakes are high in online finals 4. A bit of an extended break once again, but back with new faces and new action. 0-0 Nation ITB in about an hour. We'll see you then. Thanks for today, and we'll personally see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
I have a very complicated job, but I love simple things so much. One move. One push. One touch. One love. One click. One expert.
Are you sick of just
Watch the matches with BO3.GG, the official stats partner of CCT. Check out AI-powered predictions in live matches. Get access to live scoreboards packed with in-depth weapons and grenade statistics. Check out round maps in the match results. Extend your game vision with BO3.GG.
Yo, what are you doing?
Exhibit.
What do you think? I'm a paperclip? It's Mr. X to the Z. You need to quit browsing like a lame and get Opera GX.